right. This place is dangerous. Take my hand.
All available drop pods will be ejected according to Protocol B32.
Ooh, nice mislead. Usually when the camera focuses on something like this, it's important to the end of the scene, but nope, it's a misdirect away from the real protagonist. Neat.
Tachy? Eve, are you alright? This place is dangerous. Take my hand.
What an entrance for your protagonist. Really makes it clear what the style of this game is from the get-go. Right away, we got our tutorial for basic combat, and it's pretty exciting. You're thrust into the action right away, yet given enough leeway to know what you're able to do on a basic level. It also ends with a mini-boss to prepare you for this game's generally tough gameplay, and it's finished off beautifully, might I add. A+.
Alpha Naytiba. Here, friend. It's me you want. No! Ah! Eve! Get out of here! Tachy!
Well, that's certainly an effective way to make you hate this particular monster. I do have my small grievances with its role in the story later on, but I'll compliment its great introduction. I'm not the only one that finds this transition weird, right? Like, we immediately went from Tachy dying to protect us to arriving in Eidos 7 in Adam's tetrapod. I didn't edit anything. This is actually how the cutscenes play out. Yeah, they do explain a bit later that Adam was able to rescue Eve after Tachy died, but it's still jarring without that context right away. Also, no, it's not lost on me that the main characters are a man named Adam and a woman named Eve. It's actually really important later, so keep this in mind. You probably caught on to this earlier during the previous wins, but I'm gonna say it anyway. This game is gorgeous. Even by PS5 standards, the graphics of this game are next level. There's so much detail everywhere from the rocks to the water, and the frame rate is a locked 60 FPS with virtually no hiccups. 10 out of 10 in the visuals department. So how is the base combat of the game now that the tutorial is out of the way? Well, at first it's pretty standard, only giving you basic light and heavy attacks. But as you progress through the game and gain skill points through various means, you'll unlock a ton more abilities and combos to use that increase the variety of attack options. I'll talk about each relevant ability as we get to them, but for now, the variety of combos gets a win from me. So if you couldn't tell already, Stellar Blade is a Souls-like, which is basically a game that takes inspiration from games like Dark Souls and Bloodborne, and one of the elements of those games shows up in the form of camps. These are basically checkpoints scattered throughout the areas you travel through, and while you're there, you can rest to heal your wounds and replenish your healing items at the cost of reviving all the enemies you've killed prior, buy a number of handy items with the gold you collected from enemies in breakable boxes, and unlock additional abilities with skill points should you have enough. You'll also come across special supply camps where you'll be able to do everything I just said, in addition to upgrading your sword, healing items, and exospines, craft nanosuits, check out the drone, and use it as a warp spot via phone somehow. The one caveat is that you will need at least one Bitcoin item on hand to activate the camps, but that's never an issue since each camp has a Bitcoin placed for you to use. Good stuff. In addition to your basic light and heavy attacks, you also have beta skills at your disposal which function as extra powerful attacks to help in a pinch. These attacks include a forward lunge, a destructive sweep, a couple projectile slashes, and a shield-breaking backflip, all of which can be enhanced for more power and extra hits. But they aren't really spammable as they do require beta energy gain for dealing damage and parrying attacks, which is a neat balance. Speaking of which, there are a lot of nuances to the battle system that I should cover. Any ordinary hack and slash would probably settle for the basic light and heavy attacks with some special moves and call it a day, but Stellar Blade actually has way more depth to it. Every enemy has a shield gauge that guards against attacks and can be depleted through enough damage, and you have one yourself that can be enhanced as well. The enemies also have a balance gauge that can be depleted through parrying at the right time, and once it's done, the enemy will be stunned and left open for a devastating retribution attack, which can be one of a couple different beautiful animations. Beyond that, you can ambush enemies from above and behind if they don't see you, you can add combos to your perfect parry and perfect dodge, and there are attacks that can be executed through dodging a certain way at the right time. There are a lot of things you can do, and it all feels amazing to pull off. It's also balanced out by these being a particularly difficult game to master. Not on the level of Dark Souls or anything, but still fairly difficult. Let's talk collectibles, because Stellar Blade has a lot of collectibles. These range from memory sticks and other documents from fallen humans that expand on the world in interesting ways, body and beta cores from fallen airborne squad members that increase your health and beta energy for every 3 you collect, various gear and exospines that enhance certain aspects like your strength, attack speed, defense, etc., nanosuits that once crafted can be worn as different outfits, some cool, some cute, some clearly meant for fan service, a bear costume, and cans. All kinds of cans, actually. Soda cans, coffee cans, smoothie cans, you name it. Eve also feels the need to do an overdramatic pose whenever she picks one up, which is kind of funny, not gonna lie. Trophy hunters can rest easy, as aside from the cans, you don't need to get all of these, but there's certainly incentive to go after at least most of them. If you don't count the fight against the brute Naytiba in the opening, and I wouldn't blame you for doing so, then this is about the time for our first real boss of the game, Abaddon. This thing is primarily a melee boss with quick, strong swipes with its blades, and halfway through it adds lightning attacks like electric stabs, raining lightning from the sky, and electric waves. It can be tough for a first-timer, but it's also not too bad if you learn the game's mechanics well. What's more, every boss gets finished off in spectacular fashion, and Abaddon is the first to fall via splitting the thing's head in half. Now that's what I call a brutality. I know I haven't talked about Eidos 7 as a whole area yet, and that's because A, there was a bunch of stuff to lay out first, and B, there isn't much to say about it. It's a nice first world that's mostly linear with a few branching paths, and has a neat variety of locales to visit, but I still don't think it's extraordinary or anything. However, what is extraordinary is the music for the first part of Eidos 7, Silent Street. I don't understand the lyrics even after listening to the song on its own, but frankly, it's so beautiful that I don't care. In fact, this music track of all things was what solidified my love for this game. I was already enjoying what the game had to offer, but this track cemented it as an all-time favorite for me, as odd as that sounds.
Are you alright?
Oh, I was just remembering something from yesterday. This city, it's so quiet and so lonesome.
Well, that's what happens when a city becomes devoid of humanity. Eve, what are you going to do after you defeat the Alpha Naytiba?
All airborne squad members exist for one sole purpose. All we must do is complete the mission.
You mean the extinction of all Naytibas? Right? To think that the point of your existence is to snuff out another species. No fun in that.
The flooded commercial sector doesn't have much going on, even when it gets drained later, but I have to compliment the music for the area. It's so good, and it hits me just like Silent Street's music did, right in the heartstrings.
At the start of the 22nd century, humanity's right to life was threatened by advanced global warming. Having foreseen this, Mother Sphere ensured mankind could meet this challenge. The eons-long process of natural adaptation resolved near instantly. The body cell replaced the heart and made it possible to survive in environments without oxygen or water. Thanks to advances in biotechnology and nanotechnology, the inconveniences of aging and disease were a thing of the past. This created giant leaps forward in the development of hazardous industrial spaces and space itself. We can now withstand the crushing pressures of the deepest oceans and even exit a space station without the need of a spacesuit.
Exposition or world building? You decide for yourself, but whichever it is, it's a win for me since it gives us insight to how advanced this world has become relative to our own. Not gonna lie, I almost didn't say anything about Corruptor because of how little I have to say about it. It's not bad by any means, it's just slightly different from a Dozer Naytiba in that it can spray green stuff everywhere. It can be a little tough on your first playthrough, but it doesn't leave a lasting impression despite showing up 3 times. It doesn't feel right to win or sin it, so cue the Pac-Man soundbite.
Wow. What a view.
I wonder what it looked like before the war.
What do you think it looked like?
Well, probably upright buildings, well-manicured flora, and living people.
That's it? You have no imagination. Then again, I guess you've never been here before. Imagine bustling streets, crystal clean air, and people smiling everywhere you look.
Have you ever seen something like that before, Adam?
Yes. A long time ago.
Ah, the Gigas fight. Gigas, however you pronounce that name, it's got a good fight. It's a bare-knuckle brawler swinging its arms wildly and leaping into the air for massive attacks, and halfway through it literally turns up the heat with added fire damage to its already hard-hitting swings. Strangely, it doesn't use its Beyblade head for anything though, which is a shame, but I can't complain too much about it since the fight is still a good time, especially with that finisher. Nice start for the Alpha Naytiba bosses.
Hello? Here! Can somebody rescue me?
A
Please?
human voice?
In the pod!
If you're there, please help!
What the? A survivor from the airborne squad.
Were you the one who sent the rescue signal?
Huh? Yes. Yes, it was me. You're a member of the 7th Airborne Squad, right?
Yes. And you?
Right. Let me introduce myself. I'm an engineering support of the 5th Airborne Squad. Lily Artemis II. But you can just call me Lily.
Lily is so much fun. She's our bubbly, optimistic engineer with a bit of a snarky side, and she never gets annoying or troublesome. Easily one of my favorite characters in the game, alongside Adam, Eve, and someone else I can't mention yet because spoilers.
Then I can be your engineering support. Of course, I will need proper equipment first.
Equipment? Well, I did want to say something earlier.
What is it?
Actually, there's a city where other survivors, besides me, live.
What? Really?
It's called Zion, humanity's last city. If we go there, there might be people that can help us. I have a safe house with some equipment I bet you would want.
Then let's head there quickly!
Before that, I would like to ask you something. Currently, Xion is holding out under the guidance of Orkla, who is also our spiritual leader. It's complicated. Eve, I imagine completing your mission isn't any easier having lost your comrades. So, please, help me save Zion. If you do, I promise Orkla and I will do everything we can to help you on your mission. It's about joining forces and helping each other, just like we did before. Sound good?
Okay, so the game presents you with a choice whether or not to cooperate with Adam, and you'd think this might change something in the game, but no, it doesn't matter which one you choose. Eve still goes along with Adam, and the game mostly plays out the same way. Why is this even a choice at all?
Is this some kind of graveyard?
No. The people here are in a deep sleep due to energy depletion. Carrying on this way, it can only bring darkness.
This is such a simple yet effective moment. Tens of thousands of people are basically on life support, and it really sets the stakes for the adventure going forward. Ah, Zion, your central hub for the majority of the game. It starts out pretty drab and barren, fitting just how bleak the situation is for the people here, but as you progress the game, the town is filled with more people and more decorations, along with more lively music. While you're here, you can do several things like accept side quests from NPCs in the bulletin board, buy various items from the shops, and get yourself a new hairstyle. As you can see, there's plenty to do in Zion, and it never gets dull. There are also a couple side quests in Zion that can influence the ending you get, and the first of these involves Kaya, the owner of the Sisters' Junk Shop. She's a timid but sweet girl that'll sell you most things you need, and her side quest mainly involves getting her bike back and later her sister back in a couple areas. We'll talk about specific parts of her side quests as they come, but for now, Kaya's a good one. The other special side quest in Zion is about Sue and Enya in the bar. Likewise, I'll talk about specific parts of the side quest as they come, but for now, it's a very sweet story about repairing Enya physically and mentally, as well as allowing the two lovers to bond once again. You almost feel bad if you ever choose to skip it on repeat playthroughs. Though while on the subject of side quests, the Simple Puzzle and the succeeding Wisdom Puzzle side quests are anything but simple or wise. Basically, you gotta go to the terminal near the entrance to the presence chamber and input the correct code based on the extremely vague puzzle given to you. Ordinarily, a puzzle would give you just enough of a hint for you to solve it yourself without immediately giving itself away. But these side quests' idea of a hint is to just give you random equations and have you pore over your brain to figure it out. I mean, just look at this. How am I supposed to know that for the simple puzzle, I'm supposed to multiply the first two numbers as well as the second and third numbers, and then add the multiples I got to get the last number? Furthermore, how am I supposed to know that for the wisdom puzzle, I gotta subtract the first two numbers, multiply each number by the difference, and then add those multiples together? It's either figure it out yourself or look it up online, and while I respect the people who managed to do the former, I have no shame in doing the latter. Luckily, there's a side quest I can talk about that's a bit better, or at least there is now after a couple updates. When the photo mode was added to the game, 3 side quests were added where you use the camera in Zion, the Wasteland, and the Great Desert to find 10 graffiti paintings of cats, butterflies, and fish hidden throughout the world. I am honestly a bit mixed on this one, as on the one hand, it is fun to come across these cute little images as you're running through the worlds, doing the main quest or other side quests. It rewards you for thorough exploration, but on the other hand, there are a handful of these images that are really hard to find, even with the hints in the databank. Most of them I could find with little issue, but those last few were always the ones that gave me trouble, especially in the Great Desert. Despite that, I am willing to give it a win because of how cute and fun finding the paintings is, but it is kinda teetering on the edge of a stalemate or sin. Anyways, once you're done roaming around Zion for the time being, you get given another weapon by Lily. The drone that's been following you around can now turn into a gun with 5 different ammo types. bullets, shotgun shells, explosive shells, lock-on missiles, and a laser, all of which are perfect for dealing with faraway foes when need be, and you can upgrade the drone with drone modules you find while exploring the world. It does slow you down when you bring it out though, so be sure to keep your distance. The Wasteland is the second major world we traverse, and it's pretty 50-50 for me. On the one hand, I like the music that plays for it, and there's quite a bit of side quests to do here. On the other hand, it's pretty big and visually repetitive. I know it's a wasteland, it's gonna look barren, but compared to the more striking environments we had in Eidos 7, the Wasteland can't compare, aside from the bars on the bottom left of the map. Plus, the sheer size of the map makes for a lot of walking between camps, which at first you can't fast travel between until you activate the solar tower, but thankfully that's not too far away. I wouldn't say I dislike the area enough to sin it, but I'm not gonna win it either. But what I am gonna sin is these turret droids. The shots they fire hurt like hell, they can rapid fire them at any point, and they even have a laser that hurts even more. On their own, they may not be that bad, but if you're faced with a group of them, or one pair with an old droid, which is more common than you think, you are in for pain, because it's really hard to focus on any one target when you're constantly getting shot at or beaten up by the others. After a while, I actually began to sneak around them rather than fight them head on, unless I could ambush one from the air, because dealing with the groups is just too much of a hassle. And what's worse than a turret droid? A stationary guard turret, of course. What makes it worse? Well, instead of rapid-fire shots or a laser to deal with, how about firing one shot every few seconds that's extremely accurate and obliterates most of your health with one attack? Doesn't that sound fun? Wait, it does? You might need some help then. So Stellar Blade reuses 5 different bosses in various places, and while I won't be talking about all of them since they're barely any different from their first encounter, one of the 2 I will be discussing is the Gigas rematch. Yeah, they literally reused the boss we just killed not that long ago. And that ties into my major complaint with this fight. At first glance, you might think this is just the same boss we fought come back for vengeance, but if you remember, that Naytiba completely dissolved once it was killed, so this can't be the same one. And apparently, it isn't. Adam attempts to hand-wave it away by calling it a subspecies of the Gigas we killed, but if that's the case, it sure is one hell of a coincidence that A, it shares the exact same name, B, looks nearly identical to the previous Gigas, and C, has the exact same wound we made on it before killing it. Like, the fight is fine on its own, if a little bit harder than the original, but it's this weird choice to frame it as the return of the original, but also not, that makes things really confusing.
Thank you so much for your help. Hello, Adam. It has been some time. Would you kindly introduce me to this lady?
Of course, what's the word? Oh yeah, Angel.
Angel. That's the unofficial name for members of the Eve Airborne Squad.
I'm Eve. What happened to you? Drones like you aren't supposed to work this way.
Hello, Eve. I am Digger. I have innumerable thoughts concerning my existence, and I am capable of making fantastic plans.
Digger's a bit of a weird one. I like him as a character and all, but there's a bit of tonal whiplash between his animations and his voice direction. Apparently some people have said the voice acting in Stellar Blade is bad, at least in the English dub. I don't agree with that at all, but I will admit there are occasionally moments where the direction of some line reads feels off. Most of these are thankfully small and not worth complaining about, but Digger is the one big exception. His animations and dialogue suggest that he's supposed to be a cheerful and eccentric guy, but his lines are read in the most monotone way possible. Yeah, he's a drone and all, but everything else about him suggests otherwise despite that. The service drones are more expressive than he is. In any case, Digger still manages to pull his weight elsewhere. You can trade in parts obtained from destroying old droids and turret droids in exchange for stuff like weapon cores, drone module upgrades, etc. And there's a side quest with him attempting to find out his purpose in life and ultimately relocating to Zion as a result. It's a classic tale of a robot pondering its existence, but like with all cliches, it's the execution that matters more than anything. Before entering Altess Levoire and Abyss Levoire later on, you'll need to fight one of the guards from Zion to prove yourself worthy, and they can be pretty hard if you don't know what you're doing. They have long, continuous combos that can easily wipe you out if you aren't careful, and they're quick to restore their shields and balance after each one. Yet, once you memorize their attack combos and parry at the perfect times, it's not too bad. Still a bit of a challenge, but more than doable. Speaking of Altess Levoire, there's a lot of potential here for a horror game. The atmosphere is dark and unsettling, the enemies are incredibly grotesque and unnerving, even more than the ones on the surface, and you're not allowed to scan or use your blade at all in this place. Instead, you can only use your gun to get through, which further adds to the tension. Plus, the further you go in, the more messed up and gross the area gets with the Naytiba's infection. Almost gives me Dead Space vibes now that I think about it. All it needs is more unsettling music and it'd be perfect. And further proving the Dead Space spies is the boss at the end of the road, Maelstrom. This disgusting monstrosity has a whole host of projectiles that it'll throw at you, and you gotta dodge them all while shooting the weak points around and in the mouth. It's incredibly fast and frantic, but if you're good with the gun, and I'd assume you are if you've made it this far, the only minor issue would be the test subject Naytibas occasionally catching you off guard. Beyond that, you got a good, yet gross fight on your hands.
Day 8 after the second dive. Third record. Legacy account Raven. Remaining survivors Ripley and Anis. Anis is in a bad condition. Death is very likely at this rate. We discovered this laboratory 4.47 kilometers from the drop-off point. It seems to be a facility that studied Naytibas, but it's hard to obtain accurate information due to severe contamination. However, I discovered an astonishing fact while searching through the data. Before the war we call the Final War, there was another war. It was a war fought between humanity and the androids humanity had themselves created, the so-called Andro Eidos. Humans lost the war against their own creation. The few humans who did survive hid in underground facilities, but the hunt was far from over. However, an unexpected factor turned the tide of the war. With mankind at the verge of extinction, Naytiba's powerful creatures from an unknown origin appeared out of nowhere. The war with the Naytibas brought about the destruction of the androids. And so, during this time, mankind was able to make its escape to the colony. From now on, I plan to investigate the origin of Naytibas. Hopefully, at the origin point, I should find the Elder Naytiba. To anyone who may be watching, may Mother Sphere's blessings be with you.
I didn't think a record like this existed.
And there was another big war before the final war.
Why is that surprising? I get that nobody's passed down the information about the war before the final war, but it's basic logical inference that there would be at least one other war before the final war. It's literally in the name.
Why?
Angel. Everyone's happy to call you the Angel just because you came from the colony. Aren't we humans just like you? Well, why should we have to dig through garbage, cower, and hide from Naytibas just to survive? Why? But, didn't you know? How could you not? All of you are actual angels. There are many treasures, but none more precious than the materials inside your bodies. And with a body as state-of-the-art as yours, need I say more? I've got to say, it'll be nice to hear a thank you for a change.
Oh boy, this is a dark side quest, but it also shows the bad side of this supposed last stand for humanity. Most people may just be trying to survive, but that can lead people to doing dark deeds in that pursuit. Win for excellent world building. Unfortunately, we gotta follow that up with one of the most pointless side quests I've ever seen. In this alley, you run into this guy who asks you to follow him, and when you do, he gives you a terminal locked with a passcode that you can't obtain. Ever. You can't even access the terminal later on. It's just handed to you and the guy f***s off forever. What was the point in any of this? But if you're looking for more world building, we got another side quest just for you. Through some exploration, you'll come across a secret door that requires finding pieces of a passcode on various terminals across Zion, and once you input the code, you'll find a hidden area called the Ark. Apparently, some people in Zion weren't too thrilled about preserving their lives in Oracle's cradle, thinking they were being forced to sleep for who knows how long. So they built this as an alternative, but didn't fully understand what the cradle was, and as a result, it was shut down with a few unfortunate casualties. It's another dark side quest that shows how far some will go to survive, even at the expense of others. You know how I mentioned that I'd be talking about 2 of the reused bosses in this game? Well, it's time to talk about the other one, that being the Brute Naytiba from the tutorial. Back then, it was just a small test to finish preparing you for the game ahead, but now that you're a fair bit in, it's back with a harder exam. The Brute can swing its giant hands fast and hard, and like Gigas, amps up its attacks with fire halfway through, to the point of creating explosions and fiery shockwaves. It is probably easier than both Gigas fights, but it's no less entertaining and more than makes up for its initial fight at the start. Matrix 11, our next world to traverse, and it's a doozy. I'll go over specific areas that I find intriguing, but generally speaking, this is a solid, creepy area. The enemies, while not as disgusting as the ones in Altess Levoire, are still gross as they're parasites that use corpses to attack you, and there are set pieces that really keep you on your toes. It's also just long enough to where it doesn't overstay its welcome, so that's nice. Speaking of set pieces, the collapsed rail bridge doesn't seem like one at first. It's a little daunting if you're scared of heights, which I am in real life, but strangely not in video games. And going up the damaged girders isn't anything crazy, until you start climbing up the subway trains hanging off the edge of the building. The first one just falls around you as you're climbing the rope, but the second one starts falling as you're in it, which results in a frantic QTE segment to get out before it falls. You can hate QTEs all you want, but you can't deny that this is an intense bit of the game. The Stalker Naytiba is one of the 5 that gets reused in this game, and I can see why, because it's a pretty good fight. It's fast and ferocious with its claw swipes, and unlike Gigas, it actually puts its chainsaw head to good use in a couple different ways. Couple that with a kick-ass battle theme and a brutal finishing blow, and you got a recipe for success. Not entirely sure if it was worth doing twice, but hey, I had fun. You know what else is fun? Using the burst skills you get from beating the Stalker Naytiba. Not only do these add additional attacks you can pull off with the right button combination, but they also provide new, more devastating special attacks such as a spinning slash, an aerial lunge, a brief boost to your strength and speed, which I never used, and becoming Virgil. You will need to perfect dodge a lot more often if you want to get burst energy though, which makes them even less spammable than the beta skills. Still, they're handy in a pinch, and in this game, you'll find yourself in a lot of pinches. The Survivor's Sanctuary, one of the few places outside of Zion and individual camps that provides a moment to breathe. Not only that, but you get to see what's left of the people who were forced to survive down here, how they lived, what they did to lift their spirits, and even where they laid their deceased to rest. It's a beautifully somber moment that's executed perfectly.
So, about that noise we heard on the Airborne Squad channel?
Yes?
I analysed the pattern, and the noise translates to kill me.
Well, we'll find out more once we get to the source of the contamination. I wonder what it means.
I think it's pretty obvious what that means, Eve. There's not much to wonder about a statement like that. The Juggernaut, aka King DDD if he was a war veteran, is one of the most fun yet forgettable bosses I've fought. It mostly just swings its giant hammer around in a few different ways, and halfway through it adds fire to its attacks. Wow, a lot of these bosses utilize fire now that I think about it. Anyways, the reason I say it's fun yet forgettable is because the fight itself is pretty enjoyable, but once it's over, it doesn't stick in your mind for very long. It doesn't discount the fun you had during the fight, but you likely won't remember it after too long. You do get to smash its head in with its own hammer, so that's cool. What's even cooler is that after a little bit more of the stage, you get to the next Alpha Naytiba. Tachy, the fellow Airborne Squad member that sacrificed herself to protect Eve, now mutated into an Alpha Naytiba. Needless to say, it's as fun as it is tragic. During phase 1, she'll strike hard and fast with her stupidly long sword, and partway through she becomes for added mobility and combos. Then in phase 2, she grows a tentacle arm, the platform collapses under you, and Tachy continues to fight you with even more attacks like ranged slashes and aerial dives. And during all this, one of the best tracks in the game is playing, perfectly conveying the tragic situation at hand. Eve knowing full well that it's all her fault that Tachy ended up like this, and that she's the only one that can put her out of her misery. Both phases carry this tone so well, and phase 2 shines even brighter with that beautiful chorus.
The subjugation is being lifted.
I've been waiting for this moment.
Now, you can rest.
Yes. My Eve. Thanks for freeing me. I have a favor to ask of you. My memories. Mother Sphere. Can you send them to her? Will the memory stick be destroyed? Because it's already contaminated.
No, it won't be.
In that case, I'll be floating among the stars to space.
Tachy!
Now they're adding insult to emotional injury with this moment. We may not have seen much of Eve and Tachy's relationship outside of the first battle, but it still hits because of the raw emotions on display. Granted, it would have hit harder had we seen more of said relationship, but for me at least, it still hits hard enough to warrant a win. So remember how Tachy became during our boss fight? Well, after an upgrade from Lily, we get to become from here on out. Yep, when the meter is full from enough damage to various enemies, we can utilize Tachy's blade and skills for a limited time. It's a great burst of power for when you're overwhelmed by enemies, and you don't lose health when hit while it's active. Also, Tachy's boss theme plays while the thorn's in use, and that's epic.
Day 52, after the second dive. 5th record. Legacy account Raven. I am the lone survivor. The truth always lets me down. I have gathered a good amount of information from the lab's records and the memories of Legion's soldiers. We've always followed the instructions of Mother Sphere to the letter. She was our guiding light, our salvation, our god. However, in truth, Mother Sphere was a powerful artificial intelligence created by mankind. In the distant past, there was an engineer named Raphael Marx. He was her creator.
Ah yes, the typical entity you thought was a god was actually a man-made creation twist. For as much as I enjoy this game's story overall, I won't deny that there are plenty of predictable moments, with this being one of them. Like I said earlier, you can use cliches well, but while I don't necessarily dislike this one, it's played out every way you'd expect to the point where I can't win it. So Pac-Man trumps again, I suppose. The next world we get to visit is the Great Desert, and this is my least favorite world to travel through. It's so big that it makes traveling through it a chore. The lurkers here will jump out at you from under the sand any chance they get. There are a bunch of sand pits that can easily swallow you if you get caught in one, and you can't even fast travel when you first arrive. You gotta activate the solar tower first, like in the Wasteland. But unlike in the Wasteland, where the solar tower was only a little bit west from where you first entered, the solar tower in the Great Desert is on the other side of the map. Not to mention, why did the 5th out of 7 worlds in this game need to be a desert? Yeah, apocalyptic planet and all that, but the Wasteland got that across fine enough on its own. Do we really need a giant desert along with it? I hate sand. It's a movie quote that everyone and their grandma keeps saying because it's true whether you like it or not. But even the worst area in the game has its highlights, so I may as well showcase them. There's an oasis here where you can learn the fishing minigame, and it's surprisingly well thought out. You got several different types of bait you can use to catch different fish, and you'll need precision with your button presses to pull the fish out of the water. You can also upgrade your fishing skills, buy specific bait, and get fishing tips from Clyde here. Also, the fish you can catch range from small ones like goldfish and lobster, to bigger fish like salmon and halibut, to illogically huge ones like sailfish, great whites, and a whale shark. Also a prehistoric fish whose name I don't even want to try to pronounce. Hilarity like that is always a win. That being said, you are going to need a great deal of patience if you want to complete the fishing side quests. Granted, most of them aren't too bad. Just go to the specified place, use the specified bait, and eventually you'll catch the one you need. It's that last side quest for the fantastic bait that'll really test your patience. This side quest requires you to get 20 out of the 25 available fish you can catch in order to receive the fantastic bait. And while you might have a good amount after doing the previous side quests, getting the remaining ones you need will be a hassle and a half. Not only does each category of fish require using specific bait to catch, but you also need to fish in specific spots in the various worlds with those baits in order to even have a chance at getting the fish you want. It's a seemingly endless cycle of running to a fishing spot, wasting several minutes trying to get the fish you need, running to a different spot for hopefully better results, and before you know it, you're out of bait, which means another trip to Clyde for more, which wastes even more time. Oh, and that thing I said about certain fish only being available in certain spots? Yeah, the only hint you get about that is from Clyde, and even then, it's not specific enough for you to easily pick up on. You pretty much need a guide if you want to accomplish this side quest, and if that's a requirement, then something is clearly wrong here. Remember how I said that guard turrets were some of the worst enemies in the game? Well, for a side quest, you gotta destroy one at the edge of the desert, and man, can this thing strike a nerve. The turret can shoot at you from a mile away, and its accuracy is almost dead on. There is trash near it for you to eye behind, but you can't get to it without crossing a fairly big stretch of open sand, leaving you open to getting hit unless you can dodge at the perfect time. Once you do get there, your first instinct might be to find a way up the rock formation it's on, but there isn't one. Instead, you just have to shoot it, which is fine enough on its own, but I spent so much time circling the damn thing trying to find a way up to it that finally figuring out that I just had to shoot it made me even more frustrated. At least I got a body core out of it. As part of Kaya's second side quest, you gotta fight the behemoth Naytiba, and while it's not the most memorable fight in the game, it's still enjoyable. It mainly relies on its claws and mouth for its attacks, but it can also spit wind blasts for you to avoid. Finally, some originality. Might not be the greatest fight ever or anything, in fact you'll get a similar experience from the lesser behemoths around the desert, but it can be fun while it lasts.
You're here, Angel. What about my sister?
Kaya, well, there isn't an easy way to say this, so take this.
Oh, this is a memory stick. That means...
Yes. I took out a Naytiba called Behemoth, and retrieved it from the area. Please consider her death avenged.
Avenged? Huh? Is that what it is? Actually, I figured this would happen. I knew my sister couldn't have survived like that. I was just hoping for the best. But I guess all I was doing was just denying reality.
Kaya.
It's okay. The important thing is that I have my sister's memories back. Her memory will live on in me, running our establishment together. Thank you, Angel. Please, come back again soon.
Oh man, the ending to Enya and Sue's story is beautiful. After finishing Digger's story, you get sent to an opera house in the Great Desert to find out more about the song Enya keeps partially singing, and that leads to the discovery that Enya was a singer and stage actor a very long time ago. After delivering this information to her, Enya sings the full song for you one last time, and wow is it beautiful. I unfortunately can't play all of it for you here, and it loses its impact if you only hear part of it, but rest assured, the song is still a treat for the ears, and the camera panning over the citizens of Zion as they all hear the song touch their hearts makes it even better. Altess Levoire isn't too different from Altess Levoire, but it manages to stand out with way more hectic set pieces, such as this buzzsaw hallway, this laser pit, and this platforming room above electrified water. Not sure which area is better or worse, but both being unique is worthy of praise.
Day 78 after the second dive, 8th record. Legacy account Raven. I have discovered an important record of human history. A war ignited by Mother Sphere broke out, and as previously recorded, humanity was defeated. Earth then became the stage for the Eidos. Eidos declared themselves the new human race. This new human race, with Mother Sphere at its heart, made tremendous progress and advanced humanity. And the surviving humans, the real humans, they evacuated to an underground facility. Some, led by Raphael Marx, waited here at this facility for an opportunity to strike back. During this time, the surviving humans evolved in order to gain the strength to face the androids. The result of genetic engineering and rapid evolution. Beings that have lost everything. Everything but brute strength and survival instinct. That's what they've become. Monsters. The monsters that we're fighting are the Naytibas.
Yep, the big twist surrounding the Naytibas is that they were the previous true humans of this world. This is the other predictable twist I mentioned earlier. In fact, I myself intuited something like this about halfway through the game. However, unlike the Mother Sphere twists, I think this one is executed fairly well because not only was there foreshadowing through a couple side quests, Raven's Legacies, and many of the Naytibas being humanoid, but it also poses an interesting question for all the Naytibas that aren't humanoid. Are those ones animals and insects the humans experimented on before turning themselves into monsters? Or did some humans devolve into more animal-like forms upon transformation? It's a disturbing question either way you go, and I like a good twist that gets me asking questions about smaller things like this. Eidos 9 is an entirely optional area unless you're going for the true ending, and honestly, there isn't much to it for the most part. It has a few neat segments of grinding on slides, but outside of that, it's just kinda fine like Eidos 7 before it. Until you reach the end and enter Lily's atelier. Beforehand, Lily mentioned that she had previously stayed here before meeting Adam and Eve, and in this brief moment of respite, we learn that despite her whimsical, bubbly nature, even Lily has her burdens in the form of her fallen comrade, Ibris. It's a touching moment that further humanizes Lily beyond the eager mechanic we initially knew, and it's technically optional. Good stuff.
So, are you saying that's where the Alpha Core is? Adam, are you listening to me?
Oh, sorry. I got a message from Zion.
Is everything all right?
Something serious seems to have happened. I have to return to Zion.
What? But we've come this far. Okay, I'll go on alone. If I were to go back to Zion now, there's no way to know how things will change.
Eve.
Drop me off, then head back to Zion. It's fine. I can do this alone.
Wait. I think I have a really great idea. You could leave the drone operation to me. Adam can take the hoverbike back to Zion while I operate. A perfect plan, right?
Lily, not just anyone is able to operate drones. You need a wide field of view, the ability to make smart decisions fast, and
the stabilizer, scanner, and link sensors do all the work for you.
How did you?
I figured it all out while modifying the railgun. Went for some test drives too.
It still doesn't compare to the knowledge you gain from real experience.
I don't understand why Adam's being so hesitant about this. Surely he knows how capable Lily is by now, right? Heck, outside of the instances she just brought up, she literally took over for Adam in Altess Levoire, so he should know Lily's got this. What, is the drone really so valuable to him that nobody's allowed to touch it? Anyways, we're now on to technically the final world of the game, the Orbit Elevator. And personally, this is my favorite world in the game. You go from the snowy mountain outskirts, travel through various construction zones, enter the highly advanced elevator, and arrive at the top in space. It's quite a journey with several key moments that I'll highlight as we get to them, and overall, it's a solid, fun world to prelude the end of the game on. The hypertube should be a cool set piece on paper, but in practice it ends up being a little more irritating than fun. Not only is there a small but noticeable delay to your movement, but the speed at which you're traveling makes it really easy to bump into hazards along the way. It's not the worst thing ever thanks to the minimal damage and the healing orbs on the rails, but it's still a problem with what should be a cool moment in the game. Note there was also a hypertube back in the Great Desert, but since that one was much shorter, the problem wasn't as apparent as it is here.
Be careful not to touch the security lasers.
Oh, you don't know the half of it, Lily. There are so many lasers during this section, and if you so much as graze even one of them, which is really easy to do, every single guard turret will lock onto your position and keep shooting until you either die or make it through the section alive by some miracle. Now, I've died a fair amount of times throughout this game already, but this one takes the cake as one of the parts of the game that caused me the most deaths for the cheapest of reasons. Sure, you can make it through with the turrets active, but good luck doing that since they're insanely accurate and pretty much one-shot you. The fight against Belial is actually pretty unique compared to its peers. There was an encounter with it previously, but it didn't offer much there beyond being a quick double-bladed enemy and getting its arm cut off. Here, not only does it bring that back twofold, but it also shows off its unique gimmick by regrowing its arm. Yeah, this boss regenerates every time you empty its health bar, and while that sounds annoying, Belial doesn't have much health, so that mitigates it. Plus, after you empty its health 3 times, you get this cool finisher of overcharging the railgun to vaporize the top half of its body. Add on the pretty cool boss theme, and you got yourself a unique and engaging fight on your hands. After all the chaos you've gone through along the way, the elevator itself is a nice time to rest for a moment and take in the atmosphere, and you get a sweet view of the planet as you're rising. Sadly, it doesn't last too long as the maid guiding you gets crushed, but it was nice while it lasted. Too bad the boss that follows is one of the freakiest in the game, Karakuri. Before the fight even starts, it takes out your drone, which means ranged attacks are off the table, and it dishes out swift and deadly punishment in the form of claw swipes, little minions, and a laser. It also gets more chaotic with its attacks halfway through. That intro may have sounded like I don't like this fight, but rest assured, it's still a good fight that's elevated by the beautiful arena it takes place in. Might not be super memorable beyond the intro, but I guess that depends on how you sleep afterwards. I know I've been gushing about how great the soundtrack is basically this whole video, but I can't not mention the song for the final elevator ride. Even though this isn't quite the end of the road for the game, that doesn't stop it from being a gorgeous melody that gives out that same feel as you're rising up to the next Alpha Naytiba. You've come a long way since the start of the game, and however long it takes you to reach the end, the journey was well fought.
Time is running short, so why are you lost? Couldn't you believe the truth, darling? Don't you worry, 'cause I'm here now, and we'll still shine. Time is running close, let's get out what's lost. Collect our own dreams and his dark. There's a word I'll keep for all time.
And what awaits you at the top of this interstellar tower? Why, the Democrawler, a squid like Naytiba made up of dozens of humans whose faces make up its head. That's cool. And the fight's also cool to match. At first it'll swipe at you with its arm and fire energy projectiles, but partway through it pulls a sword out of its mouth? That's usually where a squid's mouth is, right? Anyways, now it swings its sword at you wildly and adds in even more energy attacks that get even more intense later on. This is definitely where things can get difficult even after all you've been through, but all it takes to win is patience, practice, and some hard-earned skill. Also, rather than being typical pop or rock music, the song for this fight is an opera. Yes, an opera. I don't know if that's supposed to be emblematic of all the faces on the Democrawler, but either way, it's a good choice. Unfortunately, that wasn't the Alpha Naytiba, but luckily it makes its appearance known by chucking Eve all the way out into space, where we can get a long, not-so-good look at it.
That's the real Alpha.
Hello, biblically accurate angel. Aren't you looking horrific today? In any case, now you're plummeting to Earth at a rapid rate and need to kill it by overcharging the railgun and shooting its eyes. Admittedly, this is an on-rails moment with almost no danger beyond draining your health by being a terrible shot, but it doesn't discount the scale and grandeur of the moment, especially when it ends with such an amazing shot as this. Also, don't worry about Eve dying here. She gets saved by a mech suit sent by the colony, which isn't a Deus Ex Machina, by the way. They've been trying to contact the colony the whole time they were on the elevator, and only after the Alpha's death were they able to break through and get a signal. Anyways, cool moment. Here's a win. Oh boy, the return of Reaper Raven. Yes, I know she's called the unidentified Naytiba in-game, but that's too long, and due to a lore review in a bit, Reaper Raven will make a lot more sense. And it just sounds cooler. I hope it catches on. Anyways, did you forget about this thing? If you did, I wouldn't blame you because, as you probably noticed, she hasn't shown up a single time after the intro. Said intro made her out to be a big threat that would haunt you throughout the game, yet outside of being the one that turned Tachy into a Naytiba off-screen, and a few memory sticks here and there that hinted her doing some stuff, Reaper Raven just kinda disappeared up until now, which sucks because this moment where she shows up to destroy Xion would have hit way harder if she had simply appeared a bit more often. It's not like you couldn't have worked her in anywhere. The game reuses 5 different bosses in places that don't really fit. Swapping out 1 or 2 wouldn't have changed much. As for her fight, it's interesting. Reaper Raven is naturally fast and ferocious with her size and flight, and she can fire projectiles along with a whole host of other bird-themed abilities. The reason I say it's interesting is because the difficulty has stepped up dramatically, and even if you've gotten especially good at this game by now, she's bound to give you a hard time. In fact, this was the fight that got me to ask an important question. At what point does a game that's designed to be hard become too hard? Well, I think it has to do with how fair a section or boss is. Stellar Blade, however tough it may get, is completely beatable. It's just up to you to figure out how. Learn the game's mechanics and use them in the best way possible. Memorize enemy attack patterns for optimal parrying and dodging and all that. With this fight, there are patterns to memorize, but they're so fast and erratic that it can be really hard to parry or dodge at the right moment. What doesn't help is that you take quite a hit from the attacks, much like all the other bosses. But the difference is you're getting hit way more often if you mess up, which leads to quicker deaths that, as a result, feel cheap. Despite all of this, I wouldn't say that Reaper Raven is a bad fight overall. It is nice to finally get revenge after the whole game, and despite the erratic patterns, memorizing and learning how to deflect them is satisfying in its own right. So I think it barely squeaks out a win overall, but it's really straddling the line there.
Human?
That face, it's familiar.
Wait, Raven?
And there's predictable plot twist number 3, and the reason I called her Reaper Raven beforehand. Gonna be honest, this is the worst one of the bunch because it's somehow obvious and not obvious at the same time. At least to me it is. On the one hand, Raven's Legacies definitely began to feel like they were planted for us to find the longer the story went on, and it was pretty clear that Raven was being set up for more than just lore reveals towards the end of the game. On the other hand, there was next to no foreshadowing that Raven was the Naytiba that killed Tachy, and the only hint provided outside of one memory stick you might not find is, I guess, her name being Raven. It's obvious that this was meant to be an epic reveal for the game's climax, but the game does such a bad job building up to it that it might as well have been haphazardly thrown together at the last second. The only reason it ended up being obvious to me is because, well, 1, I saw the trophy list, and 2, I just pieced it together on a hunch after the 3rd Legacy and got it right. Would you believe me if I said this wasn't the only time I've done something like that?
Raven.
Eve. I knew from the very beginning that all along I was nothing but a tool to guide you to him. Even the legacies I left behind became part of the plan. I should congratulate you for realizing the truth and making it this far. Of course, you won't be able to see him.
Even though I have my issues with Raven's role in the story, I can't deny that I do like her as a villain. Yeah, her character pretty much boils down to a loyal soldier turned yandere after meeting a hot guy, but even the simplest characters can have good executions. They certainly don't shy away from just how insane she's become after learning the truth about Mother Sphere, and her whole motivation for fighting you here is to prove herself to her husbando. It's one part pathetic, but hey, any reason to kill her after all she's done is fine by me. Unfortunately, to do that, you gotta go through the second worst boss fight in this whole game. Take everything I said about how fast and erratic Reaper Raven was and double it for Raven. She's insanely quick and can teleport for good measure, hits like a semi-truck, which is extra painful in rapid succession, and while there is a rhythm to her attack patterns, getting to the point where you can parry them makes the fight feel like a tedious game of keep away with how ferocious she is. In addition to that, she also has a couple of skills of her own, like the sliceways and pulling a Virgil. And you better be careful with using your beta skills because she can counter them. Thankfully, you don't take damage from a counter, but it's still really annoying. Like I said, it's not unbeatable. After several attempts, you can beat her. But the combination of all these different things push Raven over the edge of challenging but fair and into the realm of frustrating and unfair. Typical Souls logic, you spend most of the game fighting monsters 5 times your size and can get through just fine with practice, but the moment you fight someone your own size, you're put through the ringer. Don't you just love it?
You did it, Eve. Well done. Why are you hesitating? Because we were comrades? Or because I'm human like you? Except you don't believe we're human.
Your mainframe's nerve fibers and exospine have all been severed. So now, you won't be able to fight. You've taken so much from me. In exchange, I'll allow you to witness the end. In that state.
Ugh, a fate worse than death. Eve could have just killed Raven here and now, but to make sure she suffers for her crimes, Raven's now left in a position where she can't do much of anything, except watch in despair as everything she's worked for is totally destroyed in one way or another. Then she'll probably die from blood loss or something. Pretty cruel. I love it. The Naytiba Nest. It's not a huge area, but man is it a beauty and strangely peaceful at that. It also shows how the Naytibas have evolved since their original creation in those dark labs beforehand. Yet there's also a slight sense of dread for what the Elder Naytiba could be if this is what it created. And now we have the ultimate twist of the game. The Elder Naytiba is Adam, the guy that's been guiding you this whole time. Funny story, I actually had this twist spoiled for me because I found out this game had multiple endings and accidentally stumbled upon this reveal when looking up how to get all the endings. Pretty stupid, huh? Well, believe it or not, knowing this twist was coming actually benefited me because it allowed me to look back on Adam's previous lines in a different context. And in a game with several predictable twists, it ended up becoming the best one in my opinion. Not only do several lines throughout the game hint at Adam being more than he lets on, but even when the shoe drops, Adam never becomes the bad guy because he isn't the bad guy. Mother's fear is in the end. Adam just wants to save the dying remains of humanity, and if he had to recruit someone as crazy as Raven to do it, he deemed it necessary. He still allowed a lot of bad things to happen, but he never liked any of it. He just did what he thought was needed to save his species. And if you were in his position, being slowly eradicated by a powerful AI and her legion of androids, you might just do the same.
And what is it you're going to do? You think you're the one to end this gruesome slaughter?
Yes. I've been researching for decades to find a way. A way for us all to become the inheritors of the human race. An Andro Eidos, with the most advanced unicinous hyperbody ever seen, and the ultimate Naytiba that has not succumbed to its hostile instincts. These are the 2 necessary ingredients.
See? I told you, the religious symbolism wasn't a coincidence. As I said, this game has multiple endings, and it all stems from this moment, whether or not you take Adam's hand. I have both a good thing and a bad thing to say about this moment. The good thing is, I like that they gave us the option to either accept Adam's offer if you believe, or refuse him if you think he's bluffing. Cause let's face it, even though I believe that he's truly a good person who's forced to make questionable decisions, not everyone who plays this game will. So providing the option to go along with or refuse him is very much a plus. But the bad thing I have to say about this moment is how the endings function from a gameplay perspective. There are 3 endings to this game, 2 of which are based on the choice you make here, and the third is based on whether or not you went to Eidos 9 before making a certain choice here. That's all fine and dandy, but the problem arises when the game saves over whatever choice you make at the end, preventing you from experiencing the other 2 endings. Now, the true ending I can understand. That requires doing specific things to even unlock Eidos 9, let alone going there, and if you made it here without going there, then clearly that's your own fault. But unless you can load up a cloud save through PS Plus, which I don't have for the record, whichever choice you make is permanent unless you start a whole new game. Why couldn't we just reload our previous in-game save to experience the other ending? Yeah, you do need to do a New Game Plus run for a trophy, but you can have that and the option to experience both standard endings. I really hope this gets passed in the future, because as it is now, it's a cheap way to get people to play the game all over again. But anyways, let's go over these endings and the final bosses that prelude them, starting with the true ending, and I guess by extension the bad ending. Basically, if you choose to take Adam's hand, he and Eve fuse together, resulting in Eve becoming a white. But Lily's mech Providence gets controlled by Mother Sphere and a Tachy, resulting in the first of our final bosses. Remember how I said that Raven was the second worst boss in the game? Well, meet the last place loser, because I hate this thing. It is armed to the teeth, assuming it has any, with missiles aplenty, lasers aplenty, grenade shots aplenty, a nuke that's unavoidable unless you shoot the shields, and meat jackhammer! It's also stupidly fast with all of these, by the way. Furthermore, half the punches it throws have a delay to them when they swing, making it really hard to get a grasp on when to parry or dodge. I will say, the best part is towards the end where you once again become to beat the tar out of it, but getting to that point is exhausting. It almost makes me not want to choose either of these endings, to be honest. Almost. And the reason I say that is because the true ending softens the blow a bit. Assuming you've been to Eidos 9, Lily is able to hack her way out of the mech thanks to Iris' memory stick, and after tearing the mech asunder, Mother Sphere finally shows up as a small child? Okay. She drops some cryptic wordplay before sicking a new airborne squad on Eve and Lily, and we become one final time to massacre the squad before transitioning to the credits. After said credits, Zion is restored with a final hypercell, and Eve and Lily are heralded as heroes, ending the game with a hint towards future endeavors for our angel. A happy ending everyone can get behind. Sure, Adam is technically dead, but he got his wish fulfilled in the end. So what's the bad ending like? Well, assuming you didn't go to Eidos 9, Lily isn't able to hack her way out of the mech, gets electrocuted, prompting a rush of anger from Eve, and gets killed when the mech gets sliced asunder. Well, that sucks. Beyond that, nothing else changes? There's no after credits sequence, but the events play out as they would in the true ending, just now with the dead Lily. It almost makes me wonder what the point of even having this ending is. On some level, I get it. Not everyone is going to go after the true ending on their first go. You gotta come up with something. But if the only something you could come up with is a slightly different version of the true ending, then maybe don't bother with it? Just make Eidos 9 a mandatory area and make the bad ending the other option, which would be fitting considering what we're about to discuss. With all that said, it's time we discuss the final ending and the other final boss, which is actually the ending I got the first time I played the game. If you refuse Adam's hand for the selfish reason of wanting your own freedom at the cost of everyone's livelihood, you get a quick duel that's more of a one-sided beating than anything. Adam then vaporizes Providence, which I wish we could have done during the other final boss, and then transforms into what I can only describe as the closest thing to the Archangel. This is the real final boss, the Elder Naytiba. Dude comes packed with 3 spears, a plethora of projectiles, and delivers all of it at a rapid pace. Say nothing of the unavoidable nuke unless you take out the angels beside him. You might be thinking that if Providence was so bad that the Elder Naytiba might be similar in difficulty, but while he is exceptionally challenging, he's weirdly more fun to fight than Providence. Sure, he can and likely will slam you the first few times, but unlike Raven and Providence, his attacks are not only slower, but also far more readable, thus making it easier to parry and dodge. It's not easy by any means, but it's a lot more manageable than either of those two. It actually follows the example every other boss has set before it, just ramped up enough to be challenging yet still fun. Why couldn't both bosses be like this? You're really making it hard for me to want to pick the true ending here. As for the ending that follows, it's labeled as the good ending by the game, but I prefer to call it the bad in a good way ending. Once you kill Adam, effectively exterminating the Naytiba species for good, the nest collapses, prompting an escape. Mother Sphere then comes down to say congrats, and Eve and Lily get on a ship home. Only to see just how powerful Mother Sphere's influence really is. It's an effectively grim ending that solidifies Mother Sphere's place as the real villain of the game, in case you somehow didn't believe that beforehand. Now, in terms of post-game cleanup, if you were thorough like me, the miscellaneous trophies should be all cleaned up by now. The only thing left to do would be the New Game Plus playthrough and its 2 trophies. In addition to having every cosmetic, upgrade, and gear carryover, there are several changes to the experience in this playthrough. You start off with the Raven nanosuit added to your collection, and if you chose the true ending, you have the option to change Tachy mode to Elder mode by equipping special earrings. Every nanosuit you collect in this run now has a different color scheme if you already got it in the initial playthrough. Every gear and exospine you find is now a Mark II version that's better in almost every way. Your blade and the effectiveness of your healing items can be upgraded even further. It now takes 5 body and beta cores to upgrade your health and beta energy instead of 3. There are a whole lot of new skills for you to learn, and you can now play on hard mode if you're still looking for a challenge with all your new abilities. Probably a lot more than you expected, huh? Honestly, it's cool to see how far they went to make your second playthrough as unique as possible. It's a length most devs wouldn't bother to go for a New Game Plus, but these guys did it anyway. Mad respect. I guess I should also use this opportunity to talk about the Nier Automata DLC that released towards the end of last year. Yeah, Stellar Blade collabed with Nier Automata. For what, you may ask? Well, around the Wasteland and Great Desert, you can find these stellar tiers that can then be traded to this living merchant cart named Emil, I'm going to assume he's from the game, in exchange for various cosmetics from Nier Automata, and even a few songs from the game too. Also, if you wear these cosmetics while in the Great Desert or Wasteland, the music of those areas will change to a song from Nier Automata, which is a cool detail. It's not the craziest thing in the world, but hey, it's just a little something fun and not total garbage like whatever Ubisoft did with Rainbow Six Siege. The last thing we need to discuss before wrapping it all up is the Boss Challenge Mode. This is where you refight any boss you want to at any time, and you can even get a couple extra nanosuits from beating specific bosses. Pretty nifty, but if that was it, I wouldn't really say anything about it. Unfortunately, one of the nanosuits you can get requires you to beat a certain boss on hard mode to unlock it. You want to take a guess? Too bad, I'm just going to tell you. It's Raven, because of course it is. This is specifically so bad because on top of having to suffer through a bad boss again, hard mode makes bosses much spongier, at least when their shield gauge is full, and you more brittle. While this isn't too bad for most of the other bosses, Raven in particular really highlights the fact that you're basically swinging a pool noodle at her while she's beating you over the head with a sledgehammer. I really hate to end this video on a negative note, but that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. Allow me to pose a question for those watching. Have you ever had a certain feeling while playing a game? A feeling that's hard to describe initially, but in the moment comes forth as a mixture of joy, wonder, and love, along with maybe an intense tug in your chest. For me, there are only a few games I've played in my lifetime that have given me that exact feeling, and all of them turned out to be some of my favorite games of all time, long before I even finished them. Now, I'm happy to say that Stellar Blade gave me that feeling again and joined the others in my list of favorite games. It may not be a perfect experience by any means, I've outlined several criticisms I do have, but in the grand scheme of things, most of them don't even matter that much. The amount of fun I have for the rest of the game dwarfs that by a landslide, and even if the bad moments are worth dreading, it doesn't deter me from another playthrough when I want to. I love this game so damn much, and I wholeheartedly believe that it should have won Game of the Year in 2024. Astrobot's a fun time and all, but personally speaking, Stellar Blade deserved at least a nomination. Was that so much to ask? I guess so for Jeff Keighley. In any case, that wraps up this video that frankly took way too long to make, and I hope you had a good time regardless of said wait. I do intend to do more ERAWWs this summer, but before that, I got a different video in mind where we give Death Battle some more niche ideas for episodes. Most of which probably won't happen, but it doesn't hurt to throw them out there. Also, in case you're wondering, I think you might have to wait a bit longer for part 2 of the tier list video. I need my concentration set on this next one. See you next time, everybody!
Hope it's